Beloved, I speak to you today as one who understands the weight you've been carrying in silence. Some of you have smiled through pain, prayed through tears, and served God while your own heart felt bruised and weary. But hear me clearly, God did not create you to live crushed under emotional burdens, hidden grief, or joy stolen by past wounds. This is your appointed moment. Tonight, heaven is attentive, mercy is active, and restoration is being released. What tried to break you will not have the final word, because the Lord is stepping into the broken places of your soul with healing oil and divine strength. There are burdens you picked up that God never assigned to you: guilt, disappointment, betrayal, exhaustion, sorrow from seasons that should have ended already. But the Spirit of the Lord is saying, lay it down. You are not too damaged to be restored, and you are not too tired to be renewed. Joy is not lost. It has been waiting. Healing is not delayed. It has been prepared. As we pray, chains will loosen, heaviness will lift, and peace will return to places that have been restless for too long. God is not just healing what happened to you. He is restoring who you are. And if you are ready to receive this healing and restoration, I want you to engage right now. Like this video as a sign of faith, subscribe to the channel for daily prayer, and write amen in the comments as a declaration that healing belongs to you. And don't stay silent. Comment one thing you're believing God for today, because when you speak it, heaven responds. This is your moment. Receive it. Beloved, there are wounds that never bled outwardly, yet they shape the way you breathe, the way you trust, the way you hope. There are pains you learned to live with so quietly that even you forgot they were there, tucked beneath responsibility, beneath strength, beneath the image of being okay. But God has never been confused about where the pain lives. He has always known the exact place where your heart first broke. The moment you swallowed your tears, the day you told yourself you would just keep going. His power is not intimidated by the depth of your hurt, nor exhausted by how long you have carried it. The healing power of God reaches where words failed you, where explanations never came, where closure never arrived. Some of you were wounded by what happened, and others by what never happened. Promises that were spoken but not kept, love that was offered and then withdrawn, protection you needed but did not receive. Those moments left imprints on your soul. They taught you to guard yourself, to expect loss, to brace for disappointment. Yet the Spirit of the Lord says that He is not just healing memories, He is restoring safety to your inner world. God's healing does not rush you. It does not shame you for still hurting. It enters gently, patiently, respectfully, because He understands that pain has layers and healing unfolds in divine order. There are wounds that came from betrayal when trust was broken by someone you never thought would hurt you. That kind of pain does not just sting. It reshapes your understanding of relationships. It makes you cautious, guarded, sometimes distant even from God. But hear this truth with clarity. Betrayal did not disqualify you from intimacy with God. It did not harden your heart beyond repair. The Lord is able to remove the residue of betrayal without removing your capacity to love again. He is able to heal without making you bitter, to restore without making you naive, to rebuild without reopening the wound in the same way. Some of you carry the ache of rejection. You were overlooked, dismissed, or treated as if you were not enough. That wound whispered lies into your identity, convincing you that you must perform to be accepted or remain silent to be tolerated. But God is dismantling those lies right now. His healing power speaks louder than rejection ever did. It says, you are chosen, you are seen, you are valuable beyond what people affirmed or denied. The Lord heals rejection by reintroducing you to who you truly are, not through striving, but through divine affirmation that settles deep within your spirit. There are also wounds born from loss. Loss of people, seasons, dreams, versions of life you imagine would unfold differently. Grief has a way of lingering, resurfacing when you least expect it, disguising itself as fatigue, irritability, or numbness. But grief is not weakness. It is evidence that you love deeply. And God's healing power does not erase love, it redeems it. He heals grief by holding you in it, by reminding you that what was meaningful is not wasted, and that your life is not over because something ended. Some wounds were inherited, passed down through generations of silence, trauma, survival, and unspoken pain. You learned patterns of coping before you learned language for healing. You learned to endure instead of process, to survive instead of rest. But the God you serve is a generational healer. His power is strong enough to interrupt cycles that existed long before you were born. Healing is not just personal, it is prophetic. When God heals you, he is also rewriting the future of those connected to you. God's healing power is not limited to the moment of prayer. It continues working as you sleep, as you breathe, as you live. It is not always dramatic or loud. Sometimes it shows up as peace where anxiety once lived, clarity where confusion lingered, softness where hardness took root. Sometimes healing feels like permission to feel again without fear of breaking. Sometimes it feels like strength returning slowly, like a light gradually filling a dark room rather than a switch being flipped. There are wounds caused by self-blame, where you replay moments and wish you had known better, done better, spoken sooner, or left earlier. Regret can become a heavy wound when it convinces you that you are responsible for everything that went wrong. But God's healing power brings mercy into those spaces. It teaches you to extend grace to yourself, to recognize that you acted with the knowledge and strength you had at the time. Healing is not about rewriting the past. It is about releasing yourself from punishment that God never assigned to you. Some of you are wounded by spiritual disappointment. You prayed and expected God to intervene differently. You trusted, you believed, and the outcome left you confused. That kind of pain is delicate because it sits at the intersection of faith and frustration. But God is not offended by your questions, nor threatened by your honesty. His healing power restores trust without demanding denial of your experience. He meets you where faith feels fragile and rebuilds it with truth, compassion, and understanding. The healing power of God reaches into your nervous system, calming what has been on constant alert. Trauma taught your body to remain vigilant, to expect danger, to brace for impact. But healing teaches your body how to rest again. It teaches your breath to slow, your shoulders to release, your mind to settle. God heals holistically. He cares about your soul, your emotions, and your physical well-being. He is restoring your ability to feel safe in his presence and in your own body. Healing also involves truth. God gently reveals what you have buried, not to overwhelm you, but to free you. Hidden pain does not disappear. It waits. But when God brings it into the light, he does so with compassion, not condemnation. He never exposes to shame you. He reveals to heal you. His power is precise. He touches exactly what needs to be touched. Nothing more, nothing less. Some wounds came from words spoken over you that should never have been said. Words have power, and careless language can linger for years, but the word of God is stronger than every label, insult or curse spoken in anger or ignorance. Healing comes when God's voice becomes louder than the echoes of those words. His truth rewrites the narrative that pain tried to author over your life. There are moments when healing feels slow and you wonder if anything is changing, but healing is not measured by how fast the pain disappears. It is measured by how deeply peace takes root. Sometimes healing looks like resilience, like choosing hope again after disappointment, like trusting God with one more prayer, even when your heart feels tired. Every small shift matters. Every moment of surrender creates space for God's power to move. God heals not because you deserve it, but because he is good. Healing is not earned through endurance or spiritual performance. It is received through openness and trust. You do not need to explain your pain perfectly or articulate your feelings clearly. God understands groans, tears, silence. His healing power responds to the posture of your heart, not the perfection of your words. As God heals you, he is also restoring your capacity for joy. Pain narrowed your emotional range, taught you to feel less to avoid hurting more. But joy is not dangerous. It is divine. God restores joy not as a fleeting emotion, but as a deep assurance that anchors you even when circumstances fluctuate. Healing reintroduces joy as a companion, not a risk. Beloved, God's power to heal deep emotional wounds is active, present, and personal. It is not bound by time, history, or intensity of pain. He is not overwhelmed by your story. He is not weary of your tears. He is not impatient with your process. Healing is unfolding even now, layer by layer, breath by breath, moment by moment, as God gently restores what pain tried to take from you, as his peace settles into the places that once held sorrow, as his love reaches into the depths of your soul and begins to rebuild from the inside out. Beloved, there are weights you have been carrying that did not originate in heaven. They were placed on you by circumstances, by expectations, by relationships, by moments when you felt you had no choice but to endure. Over time, those weights became familiar. You adjusted your posture around them. You learned how to function while tired, how to smile while heavy, how to keep moving while your spirit longed for rest. But the Spirit of the Lord is speaking with tenderness and authority, reminding you that not every burden you carry is an assignment from God. Some were picked up in seasons of survival, and God is now inviting you into a season of release. There are burdens that came from responsibility without relief. You became the strong one, the dependable one, the one others leaned on. And strength became your identity even when you were depleted. But God never asked you to be strong at the expense of being whole. He never designed you to be the answer for everyone else while ignoring your own need for care. The Lord sees the fatigue beneath your faithfulness, the weariness beneath your willingness, and he is gently lifting the pressure that has been compressing your spirit. Some burdens are emotional, carried quietly in the heart. Guilt that lingers long after forgiveness was offered. Shame that whispers you should have known better, done better, chosen differently. Regret that replays moments you wish you could undo. These burdens were never meant to become permanent residents in your soul. God's mercy is not limited by your past decisions. His grace is not exhausted by your mistake. He removes burdens not by erasing memory, but by releasing you from condemnation that does not belong to him. There are burdens formed through unmet expectations. You expected life to unfold one way, relationships to remain intact, prayers to be answered sooner or differently. When reality diverged from hope, disappointment settled in, and disappointment can be heavy. It teaches the heart to lower its expectations to avoid future pain, but God is not offended by your hope, nor threatened by your disappointment. He removes the burden of unmet expectations by restoring trust, by reminding you that his timing is not neglect and his silence is not absence. Some of you carry burdens from other people's choices, decisions that were made without your consent, words spoken without your protection, actions that affected your life deeply. You became responsible for healing wounds you did not cause. That weight can feel unfair, exhausting, and isolating. But hear this truth. You are not required to carry the consequences of someone else's disobedience. God is a just God, and his justice includes restoration for those who were impacted by what they did not choose. There are burdens that came through comparison, watching others progress while you feel delayed, seeing doors open for them while yours seem closed. Comparison quietly adds weight to the soul, convincing you that you are behind, overlooked, or less favored. But God removes this burden by recalibrating your focus. Your journey is not a competition. Your pace is not a punishment. He is faithful to complete his work in you according to his perfect design, not according to someone else's timeline. Some burdens are spiritual, formed by striving instead of resting. You try to earn God's approval through performance, prayer, service, and sacrifice. You mistook discipline for pressure, devotion for exhaustion. But God never asked you to carry the weight of proving your worth. He invites you into obedience that flows from love, not fear. He removes the burden of striving by teaching you how to abide, how to trust, how to receive instead of constantly producing. There are burdens associated with fear, fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of repeating patterns, fear of being hurt again. Fear tightens the grip of control and convinces you that vigilance equals safety. But fear is a heavy burden because it demands constant attention. God removes fear by replacing it with peace that surpasses understanding. He teaches your heart how to feel secure without being rigid, how to remain open without being unguarded. Some of you carry the burden of silence. You learn to keep things to yourself because speaking felt risky or pointless. You became your own container for pain, holding emotions with no outlet. Silence can become heavy when it turns into isolation, but God is not intimidated by your truth. He invites you to release what you have been holding, not necessarily to everyone, but to him. He is a safe place for honesty, a refuge for what you have not had words for. There are burdens passed down through generations, patterns of worry, scarcity, emotional suppression, survival mentality. You inherited coping mechanisms without realizing they were burdens. But God specializes in generational release. He removes inherited burdens by revealing that you are not required to repeat what you observed. Healing in you interrupts cycles and creates new possibilities for those connected to you. Some burdens are attached to identity. You labeled yourself according to what you endured, rather than who God says you are. You carried the weight of being the one who always struggles, the one who never gets a break, the one who has to try harder. But God removes identity-based burdens by speaking truth over you. He redefines you not by your pain, but by his purpose. You are not your hardship. You are not your history. You are his. There are burdens connected to waiting for clarity, for breakthrough, for answers. Waiting can feel heavy when time stretches longer than expected, but waiting is not wasted, and it is not punishment. God removes the burden of waiting by filling it with presence. He teaches you how to find him in the process, not just in the outcome. Some burdens come from self-reliance. You learned early that depending on others led to disappointment, so you carried everything yourself. Independence became armor, but armor is heavy when worn too long. God invites you to lay down the burden of carrying life alone. He is a present help, a willing partner, a faithful sustainer. You were never meant to walk unsupported. There are burdens formed through unresolved anger. Anger held inward becomes heaviness. It tightens the chest, clouds the mind, hardens the heart. But God removes anger not by denying injustice, but by bringing healing to the wounded place beneath it. He teaches you how to release without excusing, how to forgive without forgetting boundaries. Some of you carry the burden of uncertainty, not knowing what comes next, where things are heading, how situations will resolve. Uncertainty demands trust, and trust can feel risky when you've been disappointed before. But God removes the burden of uncertainty by anchoring you in his character. Even when you do not know the plan, you can know the planner. Beloved, Every burden you were never meant to carry is being identified by the Spirit of God. He is not asking you to drop everything at once, nor to pretend it was never heavy. He is inviting you to release gradually, intentionally, compassionately. As you lay down what does not belong to you, space is created for peace, for clarity, for renewal. God is not taking something away to leave you empty. He is removing weight so that you can breathe freely, stand upright, and move forward without the heaviness that once slowed your steps. Beloved, there are cycles that do not announce themselves loudly. They repeat quietly, subtly, season after season, until one day you realize you are tired of feeling the same heaviness return in different forms. The cycle of grief, heaviness, and inner exhaustion does not always come from one event. Sometimes it comes from many unresolved moments layered over time. You moved on externally, but internally something stayed suspended, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to be healed. God sees that place. He understands that exhaustion is not always physical. Often it is emotional and spiritual. The weariness of carrying unresolved pain while trying to live faithfully. Grief does not only belong to funerals or visible losses. Some of you grieve relationships that changed, versions of yourself that never returned, dreams that quietly expired without ceremony. You grieved expectations, safety, innocence, trust. And because there was no clear ending, grief remained open-ended, resurfacing as heaviness, numbness, or chronic fatigue. But God does not dismiss grief just because others cannot see it. He honors your process. He recognizes that grief is love that has nowhere to go, and He is teaching your heart how to release it without losing its tenderness. Heaviness often settles in when grief goes unexpressed. It shows up as a lack of motivation, a dullness in joy, a sense of being emotionally weighed down, even when life appears stable. You wake up already tired, not because you did not rest, but because your soul has been working overtime. God is not rebuking you for feeling heavy. He is not disappointed that you are tired. He is inviting you to bring the weight to Him so He can exchange it for rest that reaches deeper than sleep. Inner exhaustion is the result of prolonged emotional strain. You kept going because you had to. You adapted because stopping felt impossible. You survived seasons that required more from you than you had to give. But survival mode was never meant to be permanent. God is now interrupting that cycle. He is teaching your nervous system that it is safe to rest, your heart that it is safe to soften, your mind that it is safe to slow down. Breaking the cycle does not mean forgetting what happened. It means you no longer live trapped inside its emotional aftermath. God does not rush this process. He dismantles cycles gently, layer by layer, because He understands that your coping mechanisms once protected you. He does not shame you for what helped you survive. He honors your resilience while inviting you into renewal. Some of you learned to normalize heaviness. You stopped questioning it, stopped naming it, stopped expecting relief. But God is restoring your sensitivity to peace. He is reminding you what lightness feels like, what joy feels like, what emotional freedom feels like. He is recalibrating your internal atmosphere so that heaviness no longer feels familiar or acceptable. There are cycles fueled by unspoken emotions, tears that were swallowed, anger that was suppressed, disappointment that was minimized. Emotions do not disappear when ignored. They transform into weight. God is not afraid of your feelings. He created them. He invites you to feel without judgment, to express without fear, to process without shame. Healing accelerates when honesty replaces suppression. Some cycles are sustained by guilt. You blamed yourself for what went wrong, even when circumstances were beyond your control. Guilt convinces you that rest must be earned and joy must be justified. But God breaks the cycle of guilt by reminding you that grace is unmerited and rest is a gift. You are not required to punish yourself to prove remorse. Mercy has already spoken on your behalf. There are cycles connected to constant giving. You poured out, supported others, carried responsibilities, often without replenishment. Over time, generosity turned into depletion. God honors your heart, but he also values your wholeness. He is teaching you that rest is not selfish. Boundaries are not betrayal. And saying no does not diminish your love. Heaviness also grows when hope is repeatedly delayed, when prayers seem unanswered, when change feels slow, when progress appears minimal. Hope deferred affects the heart deeply. But God is not absent in delay. He is present, working beneath the surface. He breaks the cycle by restoring expectation, not through hype, but through steady reassurance that he is faithful even when outcomes are unclear. Some of you are exhausted from being emotionally strong. You learned to be resilient early, to hold yourself together, to manage pain independently. Strength became survival, but survival eventually becomes tiring. God is inviting you to redefine strength as surrender, resilience as rest, power as trust. You do not have to prove anything anymore. Breaking the cycle requires permission to stop repeating patterns of overthinking, of self-neglect, of emotional withdrawal. God gently interrupts these habits, not by force, but by offering a better way. He teaches you to pause instead of panic, to breathe instead of brace, to trust instead of control. There are cycles maintained by fear of reopening wounds. You avoided healing because you feared reliving pain. But God heals without re-traumatizing. He does not rip wounds open. He soothes them. He does not overwhelm. He comforts. Healing does not require you to revisit every detail. It requires you to trust the one who already knows. Beloved, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer it honestly, not just in your heart, but in the comments. What cycle has been draining you the most? Grief, emotional heaviness, or inner exhaustion? And what would it mean for you to finally let God break it? Write it down, name it, because when you identify it, you weaken its hold. When you speak it, you invite divine intervention. God is breaking cycles by restoring rhythm of rest and work, giving and receiving, feeling and healing. He is teaching your soul how to move again without strain, how to live without constant pressure, how to experience joy without suspicion. This restoration does not erase your past, it redeems it. It turns pain into wisdom, exhaustion into discernment, grief into depth. As the cycle breaks, you may notice subtle changes. You respond differently, you recover faster, you feel lighter, you breathe deeper. These are signs of healing at work. God is not rushing you toward an outcome. He is walking you into freedom. Beloved, you are not meant to live trapped in emotional repetition. God is doing a new thing, not just externally, but internally. He is restoring energy to your spirit, softness to your heart, hope to your perspective. And as this cycle breaks, space is being created for peace to settle, for joy to return, for your soul to remember what it feels like to live unburdened and renewed. Beloved, there is a joy that does not shout and does not depend on circumstances aligning perfectly. It is not fragile, not temporary, not easily shaken. This is the joy that comes from God, and it is deeper than happiness, stronger than relief, steadier than emotion. Some of you have not felt this joy in a long time, not because you did anything wrong, but because life required endurance before it allowed enjoyment. Yet the Spirit of the Lord is restoring joy as a spiritual strength, not as a fleeting feeling, but as a divine atmosphere within you. Joy was not taken from you all at once. It faded gradually as responsibilities increased, as disappointments accumulated, as survival took priority over celebration. You learned to manage without joy, to function without delight, to live responsibly while quietly grieving what was missing. But God never intended joy to be optional. Joy is a spiritual force. It stabilizes you when emotions fluctuate. It strengthens you when motivation wanes. It guards your heart when circumstances try to overwhelm you. Peace is being restored alongside joy. Peace is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of God within trouble. Some of you try to create peace by controlling outcomes, managing people, or anticipating problems before they arose. But that kind of peace is exhausting because it depends on constant vigilance. God restores peace by teaching you how to trust Him beyond your understanding, how to rest even when answers are incomplete, how to remain anchored while life remains uncertain. Spiritual strength is not loud or aggressive. It is quiet endurance, steady faith, consistent hope. Many of you are stronger than you realize, not because you never struggled, but because you kept believing, even when believing felt difficult. God is restoring strength to places where fatigue set in, where passion cooled, where prayer felt routine instead of relational. He is breathing new life into your spirit, awakening desire without pressure, renewing devotion without demand. Joy returns when heaviness leaves, but heaviness does not leave by force. It leaves when replaced. God replaces heaviness with perspective, despair with hope, weariness with reassurance. He does not rush this exchange. He allows joy to re-enter gently so your heart can trust it again. Sometimes joy shows up as contentment before it shows up as celebration. Sometimes peace comes as quiet assurance before it manifests as outward confidence. Some of you learned to distrust joy because it felt temporary. You were afraid that if you enjoyed something too much, it would be taken away. But God is healing that fear. He is teaching you that joy is not a setup for disappointment. It is a gift meant to be received fully, not cautiously. Divine joy does not disappear when circumstances change because it is rooted in God's presence, not external stability. Peace also returns to your thoughts. Anxious cycles begin to slow. Racing thoughts begin to settle. Mental noise quiets. God restores peace to your mind by reminding you that you are not alone in your decisions, your struggles, or your future. He is involved in the details you worry about. He is present in the moments you feel unsure. Peace grows when trust replaces fear. Spiritual strength increases when you stop striving and start abiding. You were not meant to sustain yourself through effort alone. God restores strength by reconnecting you to His source. When you draw from Him, your spirit is replenished naturally. Strength becomes sustainable, not forced. Faith becomes restful, not heavy. Obedience becomes joyful, not burdensome. Joy also returns to your relationships. You begin to engage without resentment, to listen without irritation, to love without depletion. This does not mean boundaries disappear. It means love flows from wholeness instead of obligation. God restores joy by healing emotional reserves, allowing you to give without draining yourself. Peace settles into your decisions. You stop second-guessing every step. You move forward with confidence, not because you know everything, but because you trust God enough to take the next step. Peace does not require certainty. It requires faith. God strengthens your spirit so that you can walk forward without needing all the answers. Spiritual strength also looks like resilience with softness. You remain open even after disappointment. You stay hopeful even after delay. You continue believing even after unanswered prayers. This kind of strength is cultivated through intimacy with God, not exposure to struggle alone. God restores this strength by reminding you who He is and who you are in Him. Joy returns to your worship. Prayer becomes conversation again, not obligation. Praise flows naturally, not mechanically. Gratitude rises without effort. God restores joy by rekindling connection. When intimacy is renewed, joy follows. Peace returns to your body as well. Tension eases. Breathing deepens. Rest becomes restorative. God cares about your physical well-being as much as your spiritual state. He restores peace holistically, allowing your body to respond to safety instead of stress. Some of you will notice that joy returns quietly. You laugh again without forcing it. You enjoy small moments. You feel gratitude for ordinary things. These are not signs of insignificance. They are evidence of healing. Joy does not need to announce itself loudly to be powerful. Spiritual strength increases when you accept your humanity. You stop expecting perfection from yourself. You allow room for rest, mistakes, growth. God strengthens you by releasing you from unrealistic expectations. You are not required to be strong all the time. You are invited to rely on Him. Peace also returns to your future. Fear of what lies ahead loosens its grip. You trust that God is already present in tomorrow. Peace allows you to plan without anxiety, to dream without fear, to hope without reservation. Joy returns as assurance. Assurance that you are loved, guided, protected. Assurance that your life has purpose beyond pain. Assurance that God is faithful even when life is unpredictable. This assurance becomes a steady source of joy that does not depend on external validation. Beloved, God is restoring joy, peace, and spiritual strength simultaneously because they reinforce one another. Joy strengthens you, peace stabilizes you, and spiritual strength sustains you. This restoration is not rushed. It unfolds gently, allowing your heart to trust again, your spirit to rise again, your soul to rest again. As joy returns, you may notice resistance from old habits of heaviness, but do not retreat. Joy is safe. Peace is secure. Strength is available. God is not teasing you with restoration. He is establishing it. Your joy will not make you careless. Your peace will not make you passive. Your strength will not make you prideful. They will make you grounded, present, faithful. This restoration aligns you with God's rhythm, not the world's pressure. Beloved, this is the season where joy becomes your strength again, peace becomes your anchor again, and spiritual strength becomes your foundation again. As God gently restores what was diminished, renews what was exhausted, and fills you with a quiet confidence that flows from His presence within you. Beloved, stepping into a renewed identity is not about becoming someone unfamiliar. It is about returning to who God always intended you to be before pain distorted your self-perception. Over time, experiences can speak louder than truth. What you went through began to shape how you saw yourself, how you introduced yourself to life, how you expected others to treat you. Slowly, subtly, your identity became wrapped around survival instead of purpose. But God is restoring your sense of self from the inside out, gently separating who you are from what you endured. Your renewed identity is rooted in God's voice, not in your history. You are not defined by the season that broke you, the mistake that embarrassed you, or the delay that discouraged you. God speaks identity before behavior, belonging before performance, purpose before progress. Restoration begins when you allow His definition of you to become louder than every label placed on you by circumstances, people, or even your own inner critic. Hope is being restored alongside identity. Hope is not wishful thinking. It is confident expectation grounded in God's faithfulness. Some of you stopped hoping because hope felt painful. Every time you hoped, disappointment followed. So you learned to lower expectations as a form of self-protection. But God is teaching your heart that hope anchored in Him is safe. He is restoring your ability to look forward without fear, to anticipate goodness without suspicion, to believe again without bracing for loss. Wholeness does not mean you forget what happened or pretend you were never affected. Wholeness means you are no longer fragmented by your experiences. Pieces of you that were frozen in trauma, loss, or disappointment are being reintegrated. God is gathering the parts of you that were scattered across difficult seasons and bringing them back into alignment. You are becoming whole, not by erasing pain, but by allowing healing to reach every place pain touched. Renewed identity changes how you relate to yourself. You begin to speak to yourself with compassion instead of criticism. You recognize your growth instead of focusing solely on your shortcomings. You honor your resilience instead of minimizing your progress. God restores identity by restoring self-awareness rooted in grace. You begin to see yourself as God sees you. Beloved, capable, evolving, forgiven, purposeful. Hope also changes how you interpret delays. What once felt like stagnation begins to feel like preparation. You realize that waiting did not weaken you, it refines you. God restores hope by revealing meaning in seasons that once felt empty. You see how he was present even when outcomes were unclear, how he was shaping character even when circumstances felt stagnant. Wholeness affects your emotional life. You feel emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You experience sadness without losing stability, joy without fear of it disappearing, peace without suspicion. Emotional wholeness means your feelings inform you, not control you. God restores emotional balance by healing extremes. Numbness on one end, overwhelm on the other, bring you into a centered, grounded state. Your renewed identity also influences your boundaries. You no longer define yourself by how much you can endure or how much you can give. You recognize your limits without guilt. You protect your peace without apology. God restores identity by teaching you that boundaries are not barriers to love. They are frameworks for healthy connection. Hope returns to your prayers. You pray with expectation again, not because you are guaranteed specific outcomes, but because you trust God's heart. Prayer becomes relational instead of transactional. You are no longer trying to convince God to act. You are aligning yourself with his presence. Hope fuels consistency, patience, and trust in the unknown. Wholeness reshapes your relationships. You engage from authenticity rather than fear of abandonment. You communicate needs instead of suppressing them. You listen without losing yourself. God restores relational wholeness by healing attachment wounds, teaching you how to connect without self-betrayal. Renewed identity also affects how you approach your future. You make decisions based on calling rather than fear. You pursue growth without self-punishment. You allow yourself to dream again. God restores vision by lifting your eyes beyond what was and anchoring them in what can be. Hope strengthens resilience. When challenges arise, they no longer dismantle your sense of self. You remain grounded, adaptable, steady. Hope reminds you that setbacks are temporary, lessons are purposeful, and God's faithfulness is consistent. Restored hope becomes an internal anchor, keeping you steady through uncertainty. Wholeness is reflected in your body as well. Stress responses soften, tension releases, rest becomes deeper. God cares about your physical experience. He restores wholeness by calming what has been overactivated and awakening what has been suppressed. Your body begins to respond to safety rather than threat. Renewed identity brings clarity. You understand what matters to you, what drains you, what aligns with your values. Confusion gives way to discernment. God restores clarity by quieting internal noise and amplifying wisdom. Hope also restores motivation. You engage with life not from obligation, but from purpose. You pursue goals because they align with who you are becoming, not because you are trying to prove your worth. God restores drive by reconnecting it to identity rather than insecurity. Wholeness allows you to hold paradox. You can acknowledge pain while celebrating growth. You can grieve what was lost while embracing what is being built. You can rest while still moving forward. God restores emotional flexibility, allowing you to navigate life with grace. Renewed identity also deepens gratitude. You recognize progress without dismissing struggle. You appreciate small victories. You honor the journey. Gratitude becomes a natural response, not forced positivity. Hope reshapes your narrative. You stop telling your story as one of damage and start telling it as one of transformation. God restores narrative coherence, helping you see how each chapter contributes to the whole. Wholeness invites integration. Faith and emotion align. Thought and action align. Belief and behavior align. God restores internal harmony, reducing inner conflict and increasing peace. Beloved, stepping into renewed identity, hope, and wholeness is a process, not a performance. God is patient. He is intentional. He is present in every stage of restoration. You are not late. You are not behind. You are unfolding according to divine timing. As identity strengthens, hope stabilizes, and wholeness deepens, you begin to move through life with confidence that is quiet yet firm, humility that is grounded yet assured, faith that is resilient yet gentle, becoming more aligned with who God created you to be, more open to what He is doing, more anchored in truth, more whole in spirit, soul, and body, walking forward with a renewed sense of self that is rooted in love, sustained by hope, and held together by divine restoration. Beloved, as we come to this sacred moment of closure, allow your heart to remain open and still. What God has begun in you through this prayer is not temporary, and it is not fragile. Healing does not end when words stop. Restoration does not pause when sound fades. God continues His work in the quiet places, in the unseen spaces, in the gentle moments when you are simply breathing and being held by His presence. Do not rush yourself back into noise or expectation. Give your soul permission to rest in what has been released. Every burden laid down, every wound touched, every heaviness lifted has made room for peace to settle. Let that peace linger. Let it teach your heart a new rhythm, one that is not driven by pressure, but guided by trust. Remember, healing is not always dramatic, but it is always intentional. Some changes will be immediate, others will unfold slowly. Both are sacred. God is attentive to your pace. He is not measuring your progress against anyone else's journey. He is walking with you personally, tenderly. If emotions surface after this prayer, do not resist them. Tears, calm, reflection, or even silence can be signs that God is still working. Nothing rising within you is wasted. Everything is being processed under grace. You are safe in this unfolding. Carry this truth with you. You are not returning to life the same way you entered this prayer. Something has shifted. Something has softened. Something has been restored. Even if you cannot yet articulate it, your spirit knows. Trust what God is doing.